I tried speed dating, and I'm going to share how it went so you can figure out if you want to try it too. I'm Marley with Pacific Widow Solutions, and I help people who've been widowed solve problems. Now, I went to a couple of singles mixers, and I didn't have a very good time. And I think, it's been long enough, and I've developed the life I want, that I think it might be nice to meet someone. And I was sort of hoping to meet someone at a party or whatever, and it hasn't happened. And I thought, well, let's try something new. So I went looking for speed dating opportunities, and there are some on apps like Meetup where they, talk about events, or Eventbrite. I thought about one of those, but I ended up doing just an internet search for speed dating in my area, and I found a website that seemed a little more structured, a little more like they'd been doing it a while, and I decided to go there. It was about $45, and they sold a men's ticket or a women's ticket, and the women's tickets booked up far in advance. So I bought a ticket in, I want to say April, for a July date. And I was talking to a friend at work, and she said she was going to do it too, and so we decided to go together. And I was reasonably happy with it. Leading up to it, I read a little bit about it. One of the things they specifically said is don't come with a list of questions for each candidate. And so I ended up bringing just one question, thinking I could build a conversation off that. And I wouldn't even use the question if the conversation was flowing freely. And my question was, what do you do for fun? Because I figured even if it wasn't a match, even if he said something like I play video games all day, it would at least give me something to ask about. Like, oh, what video games do you like? Or do you play with friends or whatever? And it would keep the conversation from stalling out, but it would also give me some insight into how this person lives, because I don't like to be inside. So if I was to find a partner, I would want somebody who goes outside for fun. So the day of, I got dressed in like a first date kind of outfit. So something that I felt was pretty and also a good color for me and made me feel my best. And I knew that the way this was structured, the men would get up and move and the women would stay seated. So I wasn't so concerned about my shoes because, you don't want to trip. And I didn't know how uncomfortable the whole thing would be. But so I felt pretty good about that. I met my friend beforehand, and then we had a drink and talked, and then we walked over there together. Well, I specifically chose to take a ride-hailing service to and from the event for safety reasons. I didn't want someone to follow me and see my car, that sort of thing. And I don't think that's very likely, but it's still something that I worry about, and so I made a plan for that. I wasn't so concerned about physical altercations, assault, as I would be at some of the less structured events, because it was all sort of managed by an individual who was paying attention. So we got to the event, and I got a name tag that put my name and a number on it. So I was Marley number 5. And I went to table number 5, and there was a man there who had his name and number 5. And we sat and we talked for 6 minutes. And the bell rang, and he got up and moved to table, I forget, 4 or 6. And the person from the other direction came and sat with me, and we talked. And then each of us had a piece of paper, and we wrote down a note or two about what we wanted to remember about the person, and then we checked a box, yes or no, give them my email address. And I wish that she had given us like 1 minute in between the speed dates so that I could have written a little more, because I didn't have hardly any notes that came out of it, because somebody was always coming up to start a new conversation. And in general, I found the conversations flowed. The men sort of took the initiative and had something to say. Often it was, "Have you done this before?" or "What do you think of the event?" Which is fine. It's something to talk about, and it would go from there. I used my question, "What do you do for fun?" maybe on 2 or 3 of the dates, and there were 7. And it. I was reasonably happy with the event. So we finished, and then as I was gathering my purse, the first man I talked with came over and said, "I feel like we didn't have enough time together. I'd like to give you my number. You don't have to take it. And I'm going to write it down, and then I'm going to walk away. And I will not look to see if you took it or not." And that to me was really lovely because it made clear that he wanted to follow up. And it also took away the possibility that somehow we would not match properly, because I get the impression that happens, that you don't actually, like, somebody writes the email address wrong, or there is a connection, but somehow you're not able to communicate. And also there was no pressure, because if I just left it on the table, you know he didn't have to see that, and I didn't have to feel uncomfortable. So I took it, and I texted him that night, said, "Super nice to meet you, had a great time, whatever." And then I went to sleep, and I woke up in the morning, had a couple of messages from him, and we texted on and off for the next couple of days. And he was friendly and engaging, and we decided to have dinner together. I was nervous going to the dinner just because, first date jitters. But when I saw him, it kind of melted away, and we just sat and had a nice time talking to each other. Now, this isn't going anywhere. It turns out we don't have the same idea of fun. And that's kind of key for me right now, is that there has to be something that we enjoy doing together. And, but I've had the experience, and it was worth the effort. And I would not hesitate to do it again if a good opportunity arose. I wish you all the best. Take care.